Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Making a Difference here on Buzz TV. I'm your host, Wayne Veldsman. Today I'm super excited to introduce to you Mr. Jeff Swartz, the actual CEO of Ethic Advertising Agency. They're making a big difference in the world, and I'm going to have him tell you all about it. Jeff, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wayne.
Yeah, my pleasure. To kick us off, instead of telling just about the company, why don't you start with where did the name Ethic Advertising Agency come from?
I love this question because it makes me feel like I made a good choice 8 years ago or over 8 years ago when I created it. Actually, I have a blog that I wrote on it, but it derives from a couple of different places. The first thing is I didn't want to name the agency after me. I wanted to be bigger than me. So I knew I wanted something to be kind of creative, something that's a little bit different. But actually, what ended up happening is I was working at CBS television opposite a media buyer who essentially I tiered a bunch of rates by month. And then she came back and said, "Hey, I need it by quarter. I know I appreciate you did this. I just don't have time to go through all of the different rates by month to kind of put, and have the best possible rate." So I said, "Okay, well, you have to use the highest rate for each quarter." And I remember walking down the hall and thinking, "Man, that's kind of unethical in a way," and being a little bit upset about it. So that's where the light bulb went off. And the thing that I like to add to that story is about a year or two later, I kind of realized it wasn't an unethical decision on her part as a person. It was more of the construct of the environment that she was in that didn't give her enough time and resources to go a little bit above and beyond to get the best possible price for her client. So I treated it more like a culture thing ever since that kind of aha moment. But that's essentially where the name came from.
Beautiful. Your past experience is a time where you saw, like, okay, that wasn't really ethical. You drew on that to actually start your agency. And so, sort of a multifaceted question, right? So, you're doing hyper targeted digital advertising for people, right? If you want to, talk to us a little bit about what you're doing and how you specifically are making sure that you're having ethics in everything you guys do over there.
Yeah, so my company's expertise is really in hyper-targeted digital advertising and the creative that goes with it. With that, we get into a lot of kind of niche information, geofencing, third-party data, first-party data, keyword contextual, a whole bunch of these different targeting layers that will kind of run into privacy and some ethical kind of questions here and there. So we have some strong guidelines to ensure that we protect the people that we're going to target ads with their privacy, and making sure that we're aligning ourselves with clients that are going to have like an ethical motive as well too. So there's just a lot of components, and it's also about knowing what those rules and regulations are for whatever campaign that we have going on, and it kind of makes it exciting to where we can kind of customize an experience in an advertising campaign to the audience that would be most likely to actually convert and like those things, but doing it in a responsible way.
In a responsible way. I love that, right? Because not everybody, a lot of people think advertising is super intrusive these days. And so by both having internal sort of systems, specifically the clients that you work with, making sure that they're a right fit, absolutely love that. And so you mentioned the story of where the name came from, that it was almost maybe more of a cultural problem. What are some things maybe that you're doing for the culture internally? Maybe some tips you could give to other people to make sure their culture is a good fit.
Yeah, I love talking about culture. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm in Pittsburgh. Media Association of Pittsburgh is actually going to have in a week or 2 weeks. I'm going to host a cultural event that's going to focus on the culture within the advertising industry and the media industry. So it's something I'm very, very passionate about. But there's a lot of different things that go into building a strong culture. And I'm a big believer that growth and enjoyable growth actually kind of is derived from that culture. But one of the things that I think that's really important is having your culture well-defined. Actually coming up with and working with your team on your core values and your mission statement and being aligned on those. And then having that be your guide. Actually hiring and maybe potentially letting people go based off of your core values. And having those things kind of written down makes a lot of the questions that might pop up where those things can kind of come into question be a lot easier because you already kind of did the framework for that. That said, I also encourage people as individuals to do the same kind of practices. Think about what are your individual core values? What do you want to accomplish? What is your vision? What is your goal? A lot of things that good businesses will do, I encourage individuals to do as well too. And if they're working at ethic, it's nice to see when those things align and everything with the company's values and the person's values. But even people that are outside of the organization, I say, hey, if you're not unhappy, then figure out what's going to make you happy and what you want to live by. And then are you at a place that is also uplifting those and upholding those? If the answer is no, then there's something that needs to change there as well too. So culture is a multifaceted thing, but that's one of my favorite tips right now when it comes to kind of actually building a construct and actually writing down some of this information. So it's not just something that's floating around in your head.
Beautiful, beautiful, right? Take a step back, yourself and your team, think about your values, and actually create legitimate written down values and the culture for your team as well, right? Be able to reference it.
Yep, absolutely.
Very nice. Hey, Jeff, time flies. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I feel like I say that actually every single time we're on the phone. And thus, that's why we end up talking for hours. But hey, I appreciate your time so much. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And then just my one little quick shameless plug is we're also developing, I mentioned geofencing before as well too. So we have a big foothold in programmatic. If anybody's interested in self-serve geofencing platform that is going to be accessible at any really budget level and really anybody can use as well too, kind of like the Facebook boosted post version of geofencing. We're actually working on developing that right now. And if you go to qjam.com, you can join the waitlist for that, QUJAM.
QJam.com. Hey, appreciate you throwing that plug in there. Awesome. And to everybody else out there, if you want to learn even more about Jeff, what they're doing over there, you can visit us over at iwantabuzz.com. Till next time, you've been listening to Making a Difference. We'll see you soon.